When was the last time you felt truly known? Not liked, not followed, not reacted to. Known. The kind of feeling where someone understands what you actually mean before you finish the sentence. Where you don't have to explain yourself. Where you can sit in silence with another person and it feels like enough. For a lot of people, they're struggling to remember. We are living in the most connected moment in human history. More ways to communicate than ever before. More platforms, more people online, more access to more humans than any generation that has ever lived. And somehow, an entire generation feels more alone than ever. This isn't a personal failing. This isn't weakness. This is a crisis. And almost nobody is talking about it honestly. Let's look at what the research actually shows. Because the numbers are genuinely alarming. A 2023 report from the US Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health epidemic. Not a lifestyle choice, not a personality trait, an epidemic. The same language used for diseases. More than half of American adults report measurable levels of loneliness. That's not people having a bad week. That's a structural, persistent feeling of disconnection affecting the majority of the population. Among people aged 18 to 34, your generation, the numbers are even worse. Studies consistently show that young people today report fewer close friends, less frequent meaningful social contact, and lower feelings of belonging than any generation measured before them. And here's the number that stopped me cold. The average American has not made a new close friend in the last 5 years. Not acquaintances, not work colleagues, not social media connections. A genuine close friend, someone you'd call at 2 a.m. if something went wrong. The average person hasn't added one of those to their life in 5 years. We are surrounded by people, and we are profoundly alone. So how did this happen? It didn't happen overnight. And it wasn't one thing. It was a slow accumulation of changes to how we live, how we work, how we socialize. That each seemed small at the time, but added up to something that fundamentally altered human connection. The first shift was physical. We stopped living near each other in the way previous generations did. Front porches disappeared. Backyards got higher fences. Suburbs were designed around cars, not people. Meaning you drive from your garage to your destination and back again without ever having an accidental conversation with a neighbor. The second shift was work. Remote work gave millions of people freedom and flexibility. But it also removed the one place where most adults had daily, unavoidable human contact. The office wasn't just where you worked. It was where friendships formed by accident. Where you learned about someone's weekend. Where you existed in proximity to other humans for 8 hours a day. That's gone for a lot of people now, and nothing replaced it. The third shift, and this is the one nobody wants to admit, was social media. Platforms that were supposed to connect us built their entire business model around passive consumption. You don't call your friend anymore. You watch their stories. You like their posts. You feel like you're in their life without ever actually being in their life. That's not connection. That's the simulation of connection. And your brain knows the difference even when your phone tells you otherwise. Here's why this matters beyond just feeling bad. Loneliness is not just an emotion. It is a physical condition with measurable biological consequences. Research from Brigham Young University found that chronic loneliness increases your risk of early death by 26%. That puts it in the same category as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Obesity, alcohol dependency. Being chronically lonely is as dangerous to your body as being a smoker. That is not a metaphor. That is a finding from peer-reviewed medical research. It raises cortisol levels, your stress hormone, which over time damages your cardiovascular system, weakens your immune system, and disrupts your sleep. It increases your risk of depression and anxiety. It accelerates cognitive decline as you age. And perhaps most cruelly, loneliness makes itself worse over time. When you're isolated for extended periods, your brain starts to perceive social situations as threatening rather than safe. You become more defensive, more withdrawn, more likely to interpret ambiguous interactions negatively, which makes you pull back further, which makes you more isolated, which makes the threat feel greater. It is a cycle that without intervention tends to get worse, not better. There is a specific dimension of this crisis that deserves its own conversation. Men are facing a loneliness epidemic within the loneliness epidemic. Studies consistently show that men have fewer close friendships than women, are less likely to seek help when struggling, and are less likely to have anyone in their life they consider a genuine confidant. A significant percentage of men report that their only close emotional relationship is with their romantic partner, which means if that relationship ends, they have no one. Part of this is cultural. Men are still largely taught that needing people is weakness, that asking for help is failure, that emotional openness is something to be embarrassed about. Part of it is structural. Male friendship traditionally formed around doing things together: sport, work, shared activity. As those structures have broken down, the friendships went with them. And part of it is simply that nobody built a replacement. Women adapted, built networks, maintained connections. Men largely didn't, and are now paying the price in silence. I want to be careful here because this is the part where most videos give you a listicle of tips that don't actually work. Join a club. Download a friendship app. Talk to your neighbors. Put your phone down. These things aren't wrong. But they miss the point. Because the problem isn't that people don't know how to make friends. The problem is that the conditions that make friendship possible have been systematically removed from modern life. Genuine friendship requires three things that our current world makes harder and harder to find. Proximity. Being near the same people repeatedly without choosing to be. This is how almost every meaningful friendship in human history has formed, not through intention, but through repeated accidental contact. School, work, neighborhoods, the gym you go to every Tuesday. Proximity creates the raw material. Everything else builds on top of it. Unplanned time. Friendships deepen during unscheduled moments. The conversation that runs longer than it was supposed to. The spontaneous decision to keep hanging out. Scheduled socializing is better than nothing, but it has a ceiling. Real connection happens in the gaps. Vulnerability. At some point, someone has to say something real, something that risks being judged, and the other person has to meet it with something equally real. That moment, that first genuine exchange, is where acquaintances become friends. And in a world optimized for performance and image management, fewer and fewer people are willing to go there first. None of this is easy to manufacture, but knowing what you're actually looking for is at least a place to start. I think the reason nobody talks about loneliness, honestly, is because admitting it feels like admitting failure. Like you should have figured this out by now. But half the people watching this right now feel exactly what you feel. They just aren't saying it either. And maybe the most radical thing you can do in a world that profits from your isolation is just tell someone the truth about how you're actually doing. Not on a story, not in a caption, to their face, or on the phone, or even in a message that goes deeper than you normally would. It won't fix everything, but it might remind both of you that you're not as alone as you thought. Drop a comment. Tell me honestly, do you feel this? When did making real friends start feeling so hard? I read every single one. Subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.